Transition, the process of change from one condition to another.
We are now at a new crossroad where change is evident once again.
What does not serve us must transform us anew.
Returning to our original state of oneness and true nature of that which created who we truly are.
Confusion was the way of the past. Enlightenment is the way of the now and future, shedding away the layers of deceit.
We now bring you the transformation of the two who started as one. Our fearless planet never stands still.
Earth has been in a process of transition, and we are not exempt from this remarkable ongoing reality.
Welcome to Transition Radio.
Well, hello, and welcome to another edition of Transition Radio Show. My name is Mark Angelo Cummings.
And my name is Lynna Ariel Cummings, and we are here tonight on this Thursday, sharing the real truth.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the world, and it's very upsetting to see that there are people that I consider blind, so much so that I wrote a song the other day and put it up, and it's on the YouTube there for you guys to listen to. But they have to be blind. That's the only thing I can think of. Blind and willfully ignorant to not understand what's going on.
You know, what's really ironic about it all is that these are the people who are so adamant about Second Amendment rights, about the rights of First Amendment free speech, and how, you know, they are like, they're fully armed, you know, they carry their guns and they have their, you know, their love of country and you know, they're so patriotic, but yet when a country is turning fascist right before our eyes, when the director of the Border Patrol literally is wearing an overcoat that Himmler would have worn in Nazi Germany, it beggars description.
There's just something very deep-rooted, kind of like a father wound that people have, and they have this need for authoritarian, this need to be told what to do and following certain laws. And that is not America, because that's why our Second Amendment was created. That's why revolutions were created. And that's why this country became what it became, because people fought against tyranny.
I mean, do you really think that the people that were in those colonies, when the British said that they were going to have to pay a luxury tax for their tea, that they were going to put up with it?
No, that's why the Tea Party
jumped on the boats, they knocked over the tea barrels, and they set fire to the ships, and you know, they didn't, you know, I mean, and this is where we're getting to in this country.
And then and then the people that are out there, like the Minnesotans that are out there, they're really truly the Americans fighting for civil rights, fighting for rights and freedom. And then you got these other people, just, I mean, you go on.
I don't want to get involved in politics. This isn't about politics, people. At this point, this is about, do you want a country or do you not want a country? Because what we have is a man who is ruthlessly just driving his point and threatening all of us, Americans, Democrat, Independent, Republican, you know, whatever your flavor is of politics, this isn't time for that. This isn't time about red or blue or
and all of this drama. The bottom line is racism, and the bottom line is hiding pedos. Okay, because that's why, you know, they will torch the earth before they release all the names and all the things that are in that Epstein file. Because once all that comes out, oh boy.
I think it really needs to be called the, you know, like he likes to have his name
on everything,
on the JFK, you know, in the Kennedy Center,
on everything.
They should call it the Trump Epstein files. You know, because that man is in it just about as much as Mr. Epstein is. And there's a ring of crime that if people were to know the truth, we're doing some research right now on potential, like, oh my gosh, things that would be unconscionable to the decency of just being a human being.
Is there any decency left, though? That's the problem, because what I'm seeing right now with stuff that I read when I do going in and sharing and promoting our stuff on social media, and when I'm reading what I'm reading, it's just so disheartening. People that we know, people that we considered friends, agree with them. It's like,
but you have a president who literally is invoking a Hunger Games type celebration.
oh my gosh, I watched that. They had these dog heads and they were dancing.
Oh my!
I mean, it was just so weird. This party had yeah. It's
dark, people.
It's decadent. Put it that way.
And it's not just the Republicans. It's not just the Democrats. It's the uniparty. You might as well just call it the uniparty. Yeah. There is no Republican or Democrat.
That's all part of the game to get us to dividing so they could conquer. I mean, they pit us against each other. And it's like, people, do you realize that we're wasting our times arguing with one another what they're doing to this world? We're going to be living in 1984 or the movie Equilibrium, which was pretty sad to watch.
And you will find in this upcoming episode here that we're going to be doing right now, the marks of the racism that just they literally make themselves known. I mean, this country has been overthrowing countries
forever
for like 100 plus years
since its inception.
And but most importantly, in the last 120 years, it's really gotten a real track going on. And
what did they do to the natives? And it's the same theme throughout the world. They go in with their colonization, they push their religion, they take stuff that doesn't belong to them, they murder, rape, kill, do all this sort of stuff to the natives, the true people of this planet. And that's why other shows that we've done in the past about the incubator babies, about, the reset and all, it all ties in to all this craziness that we're living in right now.
Yeah, we're going to be doing an episode because there's so much that people don't understand about Greenland. Their people, there's 56,000 indigenous people that are there that have a story that the world needs to hear, because what has happened in Greenland is exactly the same thing. This system of colonial imperialistic conquering that goes on from the Roman Empire all the way through to what we see today on the streets of Minneapolis. Yeah. In our last episode, we specifically talked about that. And on this one, we're going to be talking about the history that this country has on its hands, the blood that this country has on its hands. And it's not going to be pretty. And there's going to be a lot of Americans are going to be like, no, that can't be true.
Oh, but it is true.
It's true, though.
It is true. There's, when they say America's great, it's never been great. It never has. It's the facts. We hide behind this veneer.
There's got to be, and this is the reckoning that America is going to have, is that once the Epstein files are released, there's going to be such a reckoning in this country to realize that those in power who were trusted with our government have literally been criminals. And we're not just talking one party.
No.
There's not just one implicated. We're talking about the whole system.
So yeah,
so today we're diving into one of the most controversial and consequential chapters in American history, a pattern of behavior that spans more than a century and continues to shape our world in profound ways.
We're talking about a regime change. Over the past 130 years, the United States has overthrown 14 foreign governments. 14 times American presidents have decided that a foreign leader had to go and made it happen through coups, revolutions, or outright military invasions.
Most Americans know about, just about nothing about history with regards to this. We learn about the world wars. We will learn about the Cold War, maybe even the Vietnam War. But the overthrow of Hawaii's monarchy, did they talk about that in American history class with you guys?
Nope.
How about the CIA coup in Iran just in 1953? Or the destabilization of Guatemala in 1954? These stories, they're the ones that rarely make it into high school textbooks.
And yet, these operations have shaped the modern world more than most people realize. They've created enemies where none existed, destabilized entire regions, and produced what intelligence analysts call blowback, unintended consequences that come back to harm American interests decades later.
You know, you wonder why the Arab world was calling America the Great Satan. This episode will let you know exactly why, especially in Iran. Right now, Iran is under siege again by the meddling of two foreign governments, the Americans and the Israelis. And we're looking at what looks like another attempt to overthrow an empire.
Who else called them the Great Satan? Beside Castro, it was like Hugo
Chavez?
Chavez, but no, the other guy from Venezuela. He was really good friends with Castro, and they were constantly called this country.
Hugo Chavez was the good friend of him.
Okay, so yeah, they both called this country the Great Satan.
Welcome to tonight's episode: Coups, Kingdoms, and Cold Wars. America's Overthrows Doctrine. Our guide for this journey is Stephen Kinzer's book, Overthrow, America's Century of Regime Change from Hawaii to Iraq. Kinzer is a veteran foreign correspondent who covered revolutions and wars in Latin America and the Middle East for the New York Times. His book brings together these regime change operations for the first time and examines them not as isolated incidents, but as a pattern, a recurring feature of American foreign policy. And I wanted to add that we used this book somewhat when we did our episode on Venezuela and what happened.
So we're going to tell you the stories of these operations, explore why they happened, and examine their long-term consequences. Along the way, we'll ask some hard questions. Why does the United States overthrow foreign governments? Are Americans safer because of these operations? And what does this history tell us about America's role in the world?
This isn't going to be a comfortable conversation, Americans. It requires us to look honestly at the gap between American ideals and American actions, between the rhetoric of freedom and democracy and the reality of coups and invasions. But if we want to understand why so much of the world views America with suspicion or hostility, this history is essential.
Let's start at the beginning. January 1893. In the Hawaii Islands were a group of American businessmen and were about to change history.
For nearly 5 million years, Hawaii was defined by its isolation. You know, when you look at it on a map, you see the Pacific Ocean, and you see how far away it is from mainland United States, and how it's literally in the middle of the ocean. So the first settlers, probably Polynesians from islands to the south, arrived around the time of Christ. For centuries, Hawaiians had little contact with anyone else because almost no one could cross the vast expanse of ocean surrounding their islands.
Hawaiians developed a remarkably distinctive society bound together in elaborate webs of obligation, ritual, and reverence for nature. It was, as one historian described it, very successful and less brutish than most contemporary societies throughout the world.
That changed with astonishing suddenness on January 18, 1778, when Captain James Cook's ships appeared on the horizon. Cultural differences quickly led to violent conflict, and Cook was killed by Hawaiian warriors. It was one of the last times Native Hawaiians would be able to impose their will on whites.
Cook and his men had left behind plagues, that's what they do all the time too, more ferocious than even they could have imagined. Over the decades that followed, venereal diseases, fevers, dysentery, influenza, and other illnesses killed hundreds of thousands of Hawaiians, perhaps as much as 90% of the native population. And isn't that the history and the story that everywhere the white man goes, it brings
hear
his
about it.
diseases with him and ends up hurting the natives.
Yeah, you hear about the whole story about, the pilgrims and stuff, and how prior to that, that the British had brought over smallpox, and blankets,
other viruses and diseases and bacterias and works.
In 1820, devout Presbyterian and Congregationalist missionaries, of course, from New England began arriving in Hawaii. They found a society that appalled them. Hawaiians practiced customs the missionaries considered barbaric: casual sexuality, polygamy, infanticide, and animist spirituality that worshipped hills, trees, and animals.
Armed with absolute religious certainty, the missionaries worked tirelessly to impose their values. As one traveler reported in 1825, the streets formerly so full of animations are now deserted. Games of all kinds are prohibited. Singing is punishable offense. I mean, seriously, people.
But as years passed, some missionaries lost their passion for this harsh moral code. Their sons and grandsons returned from American universities imbued with restless entrepreneurial spirit of their explosively growing mother country. Back in Hawaii, they looked around and saw land that seemed to be crying out for cultivation. Several guessed that sugar would thrive there. So it's not really native to Hawaii to have sugar.
No one better symbolized this evolution than Amos Starr Cook. He arrived as a missionary in 1837, but eventually the temptation of wealth led him away from the religious path. In 1851, with another former missionary named Samuel Castle, he founded Castle and Cook, which would become one of the world's largest sugar producers.
CNC sugar, anybody? But to begin large-scale farming, these men needed land. In the late 1840s, Amos Starr Cook helped persuade King Kamehameha III to proclaim a land reform that pulled away one of the pillars of Hawaiian society. Large tracts of communal land were cut into small individual parcels that could be bought and sold.
Before long, the missionary and planter elites had blended into a single class, what Hawaiians call the haole, meaning foreigners or whites. One obstacle still lay between these planters and great wealth. The United States levied prohibitive tariffs on import sugar to protect American growers.
So in 1876, Hawaiian planters came up with an idea. In exchange for a reciprocity treaty allowing them to sell sugar without tariffs in the United States, they would grant the United States exclusive rights to maintain commercial and military bases, think Pearl Harbor. This treaty preserved the facade of Hawaiian independence, but in effect turned Hawaii into an American protectorate.
The sugar industry quickly boomed. In the first 5 years after the treaty was signed, the numbers of plantations more than tripled. Sugar exports soared from 21 million pounds to 225 million pounds. Money rained down on the white planters, who controlled Hawaii's economy.
Now, the famous sugar is not CNC, it's called H&H, right?
Yeah.
H&H sugar. So maybe that's a play on words that they changed it.
Maybe, who knows?
But growing sugar is labor intensive. Neither whites nor native Hawaiians were willing to work in the fields. So planters began importing Japanese and Chinese laborers by the thousands. Eventually, they would employ Cubans and Puerto Ricans to do this too, and Africans. This strengthened the planters' opposition to democracy, since universal suffrage would most likely have produced a government dominated by non-whites.
King Kalakaua approved a constitution that secured the planters' power, called the Bayonet Constitution. Because it was imposed with the implied threat of armed force, it gave all Americans and Europeans, even non-citizens, the right to vote, but denied the right to Asian laborers. Its author was Loren Thurston, a lawyer whose grandparents had come to Hawaii as missionaries.
Yes, come to help
Yes. Spread
Save-
the word of Jesus.
This system brought more than a decade of prosperity to Hawaii's sugar planters, but two blows suddenly upset it. The first came in 1890 when Congress enacted the McKinley Tariff, which allowed sugar from all countries to enter the United States duty-free. This wiped away the protective regime under which Hawaiian planters had thrived.
As if that were not enough, King Kalakua died in 1891, leaving his independent-minded sister, Liliuokalani, to succeed him. The new queen had attended a missionary school and embraced Christianity, but never lost touch with her native heritage. When her brother turned Pearl Harbor over to the Americans, she wrote in her diary that it was a day of infamy in Hawaii history.
I think it's an irony that the word that Franklin Roosevelt chose to use during his address after Pearl Harbor was, "This is a day that will live in infamy." And he borrowed from
her.
From Liliuokalani.
Yeah, a lot of plagiarism in the white man's world.
Liliuokalani was 52 years old when she became queen. After the ceremony, the Chief Justice took her aside and offered her advice. Should any members of your cabinet propose anything to you, say yes. Had she accepted the role of figurehead and allowed the Haole to continue running Hawaii, she might not ever have been overthrown. But that's not who she was. So our first vignette is called The Overthrow of Queen Liliuokalani.
Honolulu, Hawaii, January 14th, 1893. Queen Liliuokalani has just concluded the annual legislative session. As she returns to Iolani Palace, dozens of Hawaiians gather. Everyone knows a decisive moment is coming.
My beloved people, I was prepared to proclaim a new constitution today, one that would restore power to native Hawaiians, give you the vote regardless of property or wealth, and return this nation to its people.
Crowd. Hear, hear. God save the Queen.
But obstacles were placed in my path. My cabinet refuses to sign. They say the Haole, the foreigners, will never accept it. Return to your homes peaceably and quietly. I must postpone the granting of a new constitution for a few days.
That evening, two well-dressed men arrive at the home of the American minister to Hawaii.
Stevens. This is rather late for a social call, gentlemen. Thurston. Mr. Stevens, the Queen showed her hand today. She tried to restore Hawaiian power. She backed down, only for now. She told the crowd she was postponing it for only a few days. She intends to try again. Thurston, we cannot allow that. We intend to overthrow the monarchy and establish a provisional government. We need American troops, Marines from the Boston. Stevens, what kind of help precisely? Thurston, land troops to protect American lives and property. The Queen's forces won't resist if American soldiers are present. Stevens, you'll have my full support. I will order the Marines ashore tomorrow afternoon. When you proclaim your new government, I will recognize it immediately. Smith, you'll recognize it before the Queen even surrenders? Stevens, the moment you proclaim it. The Queen will have no choice but to yield to American power.
January 16th, 1893. 162 American Marines and sailors march through Honolulu with rifles, Gatling guns, and artillery, not to protect civilians, but to position themselves near the Hawaiian government and Iolani Palace. The next morning, January 17th, Thurston's Committee of Safety gathers at the government building. 13 men, all white, not one native Hawaiian among them.
Thurston, the Hawaiian monarchical system of government is hereby abrogated. A provisional government is hereby established until terms of union with the United States have been negotiated.
Within an hour before a single shot is fired, the United States recognizes the new government. The Queen's ministers rush to tell her,
Minister, Your Majesty, Stevens has recognized the provisional government. The United States stands behind them. We cannot fight America.
So it has come to this. Businessmen, supported by soldiers, overthrowing the lawful government of a sovereign nation.
Minister, Your Majesty, we must surrender. The household guards are loyal, but what are a few hundred men against Marines with machine guns?
Leave me. I must think.
Alone, Queen Liliuokalani writes a surrender that is not an abdication, yielding only to force.
I yield to the superior force of the United States of America to avoid the loss of life until such time as the government of the United States undo the action of its representatives.
With that, the Hawaiian kingdom ceased to exist, not by consent but by coercion. Stevens would not be the last American official to help orchestrate the overthrow of a foreign government.
And this is what they do. And this is what they've done throughout history. America is not great. America is a bully. And as we're seeing what's taking place right now,
troops marching into the streets of downtown Honolulu, troops marching through the streets of downtown Minneapolis.
yeah,
Do you see any similarities here? And the threat of the Insurrection Act, where military troops will actually come in with transports and tanks. And
what they want to do with Greenland and what they've done with Venezuela and what they want to do with Canada and what they continue, because it's in the blood. These missionary, these colonizer, these like power-hungry, money-hungry corporation called America is what they've done. So the overthrow of Hawaii's monarchy was just the beginning. 5 years later, in 1898, the United States embarked on a war that would fundamentally transform its role in the world.
the Spanish-American War began in April 1898 after the U.S. battleship Maine exploded in Havana Harbor, killing 266 sailors. Remember the Maine became the rallying cry for war against Spain, which controlled Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines.
You wonder why I'm so bitter. I mean, it's...
Yeah. And that was a lie, because that was not, done by anybody other than American interests, blowing up their own ship in order to antagonize and create a crisis and blame the Spaniards for it.
And they do that all the time. False flags. And blaming other groups and other people and go into war and make up all these lies.
So when people say 9/11 wasn't an inside job, you kind of wonder, could it possibly have been an inside job?
I bet my head that it was. The stated purpose was noble, to liberate Cuba from Spanish tyranny, but what began as a liberation quickly transformed into something very different, as it usually does.
Because that's the premise that they like to set. This good, benevolent mission is coming to bring freedom, liberation, and,
we're here to help. Yeah. We're here to make you safe. We're doing to make... And in all that doing and save, keep you safe, that's when they impose more of their fascist ways.
So in the Philippines, Commodore George Dewey destroys the Spanish fleet at Manila Bay on May 1st, 1898. It was a stunning victory, achieved in just a few hours. Insiders say that possibly the Spaniards were in on it with the United States in acquiescing and stuff. So, because... Again, we got to remember that Spain was a European as well, a very Caucasian.
Very white.
And they worked with their fellow whites in order to subjugate the other.
Exactly. The native people.
So Dewey became an instant American hero.
But Dewey's victory created a problem. The United States now exercised power over the Philippines, an archipelago of more than 7,000 islands with a population of 7 million. President William McKinley had to decide what to do with it.
And get this. Later, McKinley told Methodist missionaries that while wrestling with the Philippines question, which shouldn't be his issue to wrestle with because it's a sovereign nation that wanted to have their freedom from the Spaniards, he fell to his knees in the White House on several evenings and prayed for guidance. And I guess his God, one night he said, the answer came, and Yahweh told him,
go for it.
There was nothing left for us to do but to take them all and to educate the Filipinos and uplift them and Christianize them.
That just boils my blood. The fact that most Filipinos were already practicing Catholics apparently escaped McKinley's notice, but his decision was made at the Treaty of Paris in December 18, 1908. Spain ceded the entire Philippine archipelago to the United States for $20 million.
So Spain's like, okay, we'll give it to you if you give us money. Because it's always about money, people.
Money and power.
There was just one problem. The Filipinos were in the midst of their first anti-colonial revolution in the modern history of entire Asia, led by Emilio Aguinaldo. They had declared independence on June 12, 1898, and established the Philippine Republic with a democratic constitution.
Aguinaldo believed that Americans had come to help liberate the Philippines from Spain. When he realized the United States intended to rule the Philippines itself, he was stunned. On January 23, 1899, the Philippine Republic formally declared war against the United States.
So imagine this. These people are celebrating
Their independence.
their independence, and they go into Manila to go celebrate with the American soldiers, and they're prohibited from entering. I hear in history it says that the Americans did not want the Philippines there. So what followed was one of the bloodiest conflicts in American history, something that I don't think I've ever read in my history book.
Oh, no.
Learning. A brutal counterinsurgency war that lasted more than 3 years and killed tens of thousands of Filipinos. American soldiers, facing guerrilla tactics that they'd never encountered, responded with extraordinary brutality. And the next vignette is called The Philippine Insurrection, the Balangiga Massacre.
Samar Island, Philippines, September 28, 1901. Humid jungle air, birds, a village waking at dawn. Company C of the 9th U.S. Infantry has occupied Balangiga for weeks. A bugle sounds. Men move through camp. Breakfast is being prepared.
Beautiful morning, isn't it, Sergeant? Almost makes you forget we're in Goo-Goo land.
Beautiful mornings make me nervous, sir. Village has been too quiet lately.
They're learning to respect American authority. Give it time, and this island will be as peaceful as Ohio.
Footsteps approach. A friendly greeting. Then a sudden movement. A sharp gasp. Church bells erupt, violent, frantic. Screaming. Bodies running. Steel against steel.
What the? Get to the weapons! Form up! Form!
The sentence ends in a scream. The Americans were eating. Many are unarmed. Blades rise and fall. Gunfire cracks late, uneven, desperate.
Fall back! To the beach! Get to the boats! Move!
Boots pound dirt. Men hit the water. A few shove off in boats, bleeding, rowing hard for their lives. Of 74 Americans posted in Balangiga, only 20 survive. 48 are killed. One of the worst losses the U.S. Army has suffered since Little Bighorn. The news detonates inside the American command. The response is swift, and it is ruthless. Days later on Samar, an order is delivered to the troops. It is brief. It is clear.
I want no prisoners. I wish you to kill and burn. The interior of Samar must be made a howling wilderness. Kill everyone over the age of 10.
Sir, everyone over 10?
Everyone over 10. Old enough to fight means old enough to die.
Gunfire echoes across the island. Homes burn. Crops are destroyed. Villages vanish because soldiers stop caring who is civilian. Later, some officers are court-martialed. Later, politicians argue about language. But the dead stay dead. The war is declared over in 1902, though resistance continues for years. Officially, 2,400 Americans die. 20,000 Filipino combatants. Historians estimate as many as 250,000 Filipino civilians die from war, famine, and disease. The archipelago America claimed it came to civilize has been devastated. Silence.
It's just, I don't know.
We're just sharing the facts, people. This isn't conspiracy. This is recorded history. This happened.
And this is what the United States is known for. And on that note, I wrote a song called Some Say There Is a Devil. And as Chavez and Castro and many have called the great Satan, well,
maybe it fits.
It fits. Here we go. It's called Some Say There's a Devil.
In a brief conversation with a part of me, I asked many questions about life in general and our destiny. He answered real calmly, that lies in our hands. We came here united to learn from our past. True travelers and warriors, we came from the sky. We've lived many lifetimes and traveled through time. Some say there is a devil that is running this world. It figures we blame him instead of our own. Some say God created us through Adam and Eve, yet that seems so arrogant for us to believe. Let's think for a moment and ask some questions. If you were a God, would you have created this world? Mass murder and famine, wars and political lies. Let's not forget the dollar and poor family ties. The church and the bankers, they sure know the game. They have us controlled with so much to gain. Some say there is a devil that is running this world. It figures we blame him instead of our own. Some say God created us through Adam and Eve, yet that seems so arrogant for us to believe. The Bible and Torah, all holy in name, but check well the grammar, the lies and the shame. Promoting much hatred, the killing and slaves, oppression of women and hatred of gays. Is this what you call the word of a God, or is this the work of some angry guys? Some say there is a devil that is running this world. It figures we blame him instead of our own. Some say God created us through Adam and Eve, yet that seems so arrogant for us to believe. If I were a God, which surely I am, my kingdom in heaven will be open to all. My rules and commandments would be to love all, forgive and forget, and learn to stand tall. Stop hating and killing each other for once, and learn you are family, each one of you God. Some say there is a devil that is running this world. It figures we blame him instead of our own. Some say God created us through Adam and Eve, yet that seems so arrogant for us to believe. No prophet, Messiah, or Savior will come. I made you my children and you all are one. Remember, awaken, you do have the light, the power and strength to change things around. Be mindful, be loving, take care of this world. Stop making more children and destroying it all. Some say there is a devil that is running this world. It figures we blame him instead of our own. Some say God created us through Adam and Eve, yet that seems so arrogant for us to believe. Be grateful and thankful for what you all have, and use your intelligence to better the land. No fast car or mansions, the gold and the greed. You have all the answers and beauty within. Wake up, little children, your Father loves you. He needs you to stop the childness in you. Some say there is a devil that is running this world. It figures we blame him instead of our own. Some say God created us through Adam and Eve, yet that seems so arrogant for us to believe. with creators and know your true potential, and stop taking order from churches, the bankers, politicians, and money makers. Now go on and change things. That time has now come to bring forth a new world and end the old one. You all are my passion, you are all of me. I am that I am and will forever be.
If you guys enjoy our work, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification. If you're able to support it monetarily, you can donate via PayPal or become a Patreon. All that information is in the description area. We highly appreciate it and hope you enjoy everything that we create for you guys. You put a lot of hard work in what we do. So the Philippine War finally ended in 1902, but the pattern was established. The United States had demonstrated its willingness to use military force to impose its will on foreign nations. For the next 50 years, that pattern would repeat itself across Latin America and the Caribbean.
But it was after World War II that American regime change operations entered a new phase. The enemy was no longer Spanish colonialism or Filipino nationalism or Cuban liberation. It was communism, of course. And the weapon of choice was no longer the Marine Corps, but the newly created Central Intelligence Agency.
It's always fear something. Fear this, the devil, the terrorist, the communist, socialist. But who you really need to fear is the red, white, and blue. Okay, so the CIA was established in 1947, ostensibly to gather intelligence. But it quickly became something else, a secret army that could overthrow governments without congressional approval, without public debate, without any of the constraints that normally apply to American military action.
The first major CIA coup took place in Iran in 1953. It would become the template for dozens of operations that followed, and its consequences are still shaping the Middle East today, more than 70 years later.
So to understand what happened in Iran, we need to go back to 1908, when a British prospector named William Knox Darcy struck oil in Persia. He found the Anglo-Persian Oil Company, which later became British Petroleum, BP, for decades. This company extracted enormous wealth from Iranian oil while paying the Iranian government a pittance. I remember that whole ordeal with BP oil spill and all that stuff that happened.
By the late 1940s, Iranians were growing increasingly angry about this arrangement. Their oil was making British shareholders rich, while most Iranians lived in poverty. A nationalist movement emerged led by Mohammad Mosaddegh, a Swiss-educated lawyer who had served in Iran's parliament for decades.
And you see, we were talking about this earlier, that the Americans do all this stuff, piss off people, and then people want to rebel. And not just American, same thing with Israel. You know, they get pissed off, they rebel, but then they're labeled the terrorists, and then they're labeled the bad people.
Well,
but
the terrorist is the one that caused the problem.
The problem, yeah. So Mossadegh was no radical. He was a Democrat who believed in constitutional government, kind of like the people now that are being called radicals, but they just believed in constitutional government, free elections, and the rule of law. But he also believed that Iran oil should benefit Iranians. In 1951, as prime minister, he nationalized the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company.
The British were furious. They imposed an embargo on Iranian oil and appealed to the United States for help overthrowing Mossadegh. At first, President Truman refused. He saw Mossadegh as a Democrat and nationalist, not a communist. But when Republican-elected Dwight Eisenhower became president in 1953, everything changed.
Eisenhower's Secretary of State was John Foster Dulles, the corporate lawyer who had represented Anglo-Iranian oil. His brother, Allen Dulles, was director of the CIA. Together, they convinced Eisenhower that Mossadegh was leading Iran towards communism and had to be removed. It's always they're like what they did with the president of Venezuela. They're calling him a criminal. He's done this, that, and the other.
He's also a communist.
Yeah, that's true, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody is a communist.
Mm-hmm. The CIA operation was called Ajax. It was led by Kermit Roosevelt, grandson of President Theodore Roosevelt. The plan was to use propaganda, bribery, orchestrated protests to create chaos, then blame it on Mossadegh and convince the Shah, Iran's monarch, to dismiss him.
So this thing has been going on, this war against Iran and this whole for a long, long time. So we got vignette number 3. Right?
Yep.
Here we go.
Tehran, Iran, summer 1953. Heat clings to the city. Radios hum. Newspapers rustle. The streets feel watched. Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh has done what no foreign power expected him to do. He nationalized Iran's oil, ending British control over the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company.
We are not stealing anything. We are taking back what was always ours. A nation cannot be sovereign while its veins are owned by strangers.
In London, the decision is treated as an outrage. In Washington, it is described as a threat. In a quiet room, far from the crowds, an American operative studies Iran like a problem to be solved.
Nationalization spreads. It inspires. It teaches other countries they can say no. So we make the lesson different. We make the price unforgettable.
On paper, it is called stability. In practice, it is a coup. Money moves. Editors are bought. Clerics are courted. Politicians are pressured. Street gangs are hired to manufacture public anger.
You don't need an army when you can rent a crowd. You don't need truth when you can flood a city with noise.
They call me a communist. Me, an old man with a law degree and a constitution. They do not fear communism. They fear an example.
At the royal palace, the Shah hesitates. He is young, uncertain, afraid of his own people. Outside, Tehran begins to change shape. One rumor, one riot, one headline at a time.
The Shah will sign. He always does, in the end. And if he won't, we remind him what happens when kings lose their patrons.
Mossadegh stays in his residence as the city turns. He listens to the chaos like a doctor listening to a heartbeat that has gone irregular.
I will not rule by force. If I become what I oppose, then I have already lost. But tell me, what is a constitution worth against a machine built to erase it?
The streets fill, some with genuine fear, some paid, some coerced, some simply swept up in the storm. Then comes the moment when noise becomes force.
History doesn't announce itself. It just moves the border between what is legal and what is possible.
Tanks roll. Gunfire cracks in the distance. A government falls. Mossadegh will be arrested. The Shah will return. The oil will flow again, on terms written elsewhere, and a message will be sent across the world. Democracy is permitted until it threatens the interests of empire.
You can remove a man. You can silence a vote. But you cannot kill the memory of being free.
Tehran, 1953. A coup succeeds without calling itself a coup, and the blueprint is quietly filed away, ready for the next country on the list. Silence.
What did President Trump call Kamala? A socialist, a communist. They're always using that word to intimidate people. And then the people of America, they don't even know what communism actually is. They just fear that word, or they fear the word terrorist.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
True communism is communities coming together to help each other. That's what communism is.
Listen to the word commune, commune, togetherness, What do you think your fire department and the school system and all sorts of systems based on socialist theory? People coming together to help each other. Why are you people so afraid of that? The success of the Iran coup convinced American officials that convert regime change was an effective tool. The next target was Guatemala, a small Central American nation where a reformist president was challenging the interests of an American corporation. And when you do that, oh boy,
Guatemala had been ruled by dictators for decades, but in 1944, a democratic revolution brought Juan José Arevalo to power. He introduced labor rights, social security, and public education. Socialist
Social
concepts.
security. Yeah.
In 1951, Jacobo Arbenz was elected president and continued these reforms.
Arben's most ambitious project was land reform. In Guatemala, 2% of the population owned 70% of the land. Much of it sat unused while peasants starved. Arbenz proposed to expropriate unused land from large estates and distribute it to landless farmers, compensating owners based on the value they had declared for tax purposes. Kind of like what Castro did. He gave all the land to the farmers and the people in need, but and the rich didn't like that, and they fled Cuba, and the rest is history.
And we have the Cuban diaspora. Anyway.
Yep.
The largest landowner in Guatemala was the United Fruit Company, an American corporation that controlled vast banana plantations, the country's railroad, its main port, and much of its infrastructure. United Fruit, Chiquita, had declared its land worth very little for tax purposes. Of course, they always want to cheat the system. Now Arbenz proposed to compensate them based on that declared value.
So United Fruit was furious. The company had deep connections in Washington. Its board members included the brother of Secretary of State, the Assistant Secretary of State for Inter-American Affairs, and the head of the National Security Council. The company launched a massive lobbying campaign arguing that Arbenz was a communist who threatened American interest. They can't even be original. They have to.
The CIA launched Operation PBS Success. The plan was to arm and train a small force of Guatemalan exiles, invade from Honduras, and create the impression of a popular uprising against Arbenz. Meanwhile, CIA planes would bomb Guatemala City and kill people to spread panic.
Of course.
We have vignette 4.
Vignette number 4. Here we go.
The manual.
Washington, D.C., mid-1950s. A small office, fluorescent light, file cabinets, a desk that looks like every desk in every agency building. The language in this room is not overthrow. It is stability. It is containment. It is counter-influence.
We should write this down. What worked, what didn't, the steps.
It's already written down. We just don't use the word people recognize.
Papers slide across the desk. Bullet points, lists, flow charts. The kind of writing that makes violence look like administration.
Step 1. Identify the target. Not because they're violent, because they're independent.
Step 2. Control the story. Buy headlines. Buy airtime. Buy spontaneous outrage. Reality is flexible if you press on it from enough angles.
A pen circles a sentence twice, underlines a phrase, plausible distance.
Step 3. Manufacture legitimacy. Protests that look organic. Leaders who look local. A replacement waiting before the fall.
And step 4. Never be the visible hand. If it succeeds, it was the people. If it fails, it was chaos. Either way, we were never there.
A binder closes. Not labeled coup, labeled field guidance.
How many times do we do this?
Until it feels normal. Until the public stops asking what changed. Until the world assumes this is how power works.
This is the moment regime change stops being an event and becomes a method. Silence.
Doesn't it sound familiar?
It's exactly what's happening right now. American people, 35% of you are being completely
bamboozled,
duped by a lying 37-count felony criminal who's sitting in the Oval Office right now masquerading as a president, when actually he's a dictator wannabe who is owned by the corporations and does the will of the elites, the deep swamp that you talked about wanting to clean up.
He's part of that swamp. So what you just heard wasn't a rogue operation. It wasn't a mistake. And it wasn't a handful of bad actors operating in the shadows.
It was a doctrine.
The manual wasn't written in a basement. It was written in offices, reviewed by lawyers, typed up, edited, distributed. It turned human suffering into a flow chart.
And that's the part that's hardest to absorb, because we're conditioned to think of torture as something chaotic. Angry soldiers, moments of rage. I mean, things that happen when control breaks down.
Yeah. But what this vignette shows is the opposite. Torture was systematized, rationalized, professionalized, reduced to technique.
Sleep deprivation, sensory isolation, stress positions, psychological disintegration, not to extract truth, but to break identity, to make a human being compliant.
And crucially, this wasn't limited to one country or one war. The manual became a template. Latin America, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, wherever the United States feared losing control, the same method appeared. And next, in the backyard of your own country, right in your own country.
Which forces a very uncomfortable question. If democracy was the goal, Americans, why did it require torture manuals?
Yep, because regime change isn't just about removing leaders. It's about reshaping societies. And when people resist that reshaping, force gets refined. That's why Trump is doing what he's doing.
We're seeing it right now.
I mean,
it's happening.
The New World
right
Order
now
is right here.
There's another layer here that matters. These techniques didn't stay over there.
No.
Over time, the logic of control, the idea that fear works, that rights are obstacles, well, that bleeds back home, as we see now.
Yeah, we saw it after 9/11. The language came back. Enhanced interrogation, black sites, legal memos, redefining torture so it wouldn't count as torture. These people
Same
are so
ideas.
evil.
Same ideas. It's a new vocabulary.
And once something is written down and once it's formalized, it becomes reusable. It outlives administration. It waits quietly for the next crisis.
And that's why the manual matters so much in this story. It's the moment regime change stopped being improvisational and became institutional.
It tells us that the violence wasn't accidental. It was planned. And that the moral line wasn't crossed in panic, but stepped over deliberately.
And that leaves us with this. If a democracy can write a manual for destroying a person's mind, think LSD experimentation.
Oh, yes.
What does that say about the cost of empire and how much of that cost is still being paid by people whose names we'll never know?
For the next few decades, the CIA continued overthrowing governments across Latin America and beyond. Iran in 53, Guatemala in 54, the Congo in 61, Brazil in 64, the Dominican Republic in 65. Each operation followed a similar pattern. Identify a leader who challenges American interests, label him a communist, orchestrate his removal, label him a drug lord, whatever else. And that's how they have 800 bases throughout the world and why they've done what they've done. And you people are blind to the facts.
But the coup in Chile in 1973, that was different. It was more brutal, more consequential, and harder to justify because Salvador Allende wasn't just democratically elected. He was a committed Democrat who respected constitutional limits and never threatened to become a dictator.
Allende was a socialist who had run for president 3 times before finally winning in 1917. His platform called for nationalizing Chile's copper mines, which were controlled by American companies, and implementing social reforms to help Chile's poor. He won with 36% of the vote in a 3-way race.
President Nixon, the disgraced President Nixon, was determined to prevent Allende from taking office. He told the cabinet, make the economy scream. The agency spent millions trying to bribe Chilean congressmen to block Allende's confirmation. When that failed, they tried to trigger a military coup before Allende could be inaugurated.
The coup attempt failed when the Chilean army's commander-in-chief, General René Schneider, refused to participate. Schneider believed in constitutional government and insisted the military should respect the election results. So the CIA helped plan his assassination. On October 22nd, 1917, Schneider was shot by right-wing officer. He died 3 days later. And that's what they do too. They can't bribe you. They'll kill you.
The assassination backfired. Outraged Chileans rallied around Allende, who was inaugurated as planned. But the Nixon administration did not give up. Over the next 3 years, the CIA worked to destabilize Chile's economy and undermine Allende's government.
By 1973, Chile was in crisis. Inflation was soaring. There were shortages of basic goods. Strikes paralyzed the country. Much of this was organic. Allende's economic policy had problems. But the CIA made everything worse, funding opposition groups, spreading propaganda, and encouraging chaos. And I'm sure that's what happened to my country too.
Yeah.
You know?
On September 11th, 1973, the Chilean military, led by General Augusto Pinochet, launched a coup, and it was swift and it was brutal. So the next vignette is the coup in Chile, Allende's last stand.
Santiago, Chile, September 11th, 1973. Just after 6 in the morning, President Salvador Allende is awakened by a phone call. The Chilean Navy has rebelled. Army units are moving through the capital. The coup has begun.
Mr. President, the Navy has seized Valparaiso. Army units are mobilizing. General Pinochet has joined them. You must leave La Moneda immediately.
No. I will not run. I am the constitutional president of Chile. I will go to La Moneda and defend democracy.
By 8 o'clock, Allende arrives at the presidential palace. He is joined by a small group of loyal aides. They barricade the doors. Outside, tanks roll into position. The military surrounds the building. At 9 o'clock, an ultimatum is issued. Surrender, or the palace will be attacked.
My friends, this will surely be my last opportunity to speak to you. The Air Force has bombed the radio stations. My words are not spoken in bitterness, but in disappointment. They are a moral judgment on those who have betrayed their oath as soldiers of Chile.
At 11 o'clock, fighter jets strike La Moneda. The palace shakes as bombs fall. Fire spreads through the historic building. Inside, Allende continues broadcasting as the walls crumble.
Mr. President, we must surrender. The building is collapsing.
Never. I will not give these traitors the satisfaction. I have faith in Chile and its destiny. Other men will overcome this dark and bitter moment. Sooner rather than later, the great avenues will open again where free men will walk to build a better society. Long live Chile. Long live the people. Long live the workers.
By mid-afternoon, soldiers storm the burning palace. Salvador Allende is found dead, a rifle at his side. The official account will say suicide. Many believe he was killed. Either way, Chilean democracy dies with him.
The Marxist government has been overthrown. A military junta now governs Chile. There will be order. There will be discipline.
The arrests begin immediately. Thousands are taken from their homes. Many are imprisoned in the National Stadium. Torture becomes policy. Fear becomes law. In Washington, officials quietly celebrate. A democratically elected government has been removed. Corporate interests are protected. Another regime change is complete. But the people of Chile remember. They remember a president who refused to flee, a man who chose democracy over survival, and they remember his final promise that one day the great avenues would open again.
It's like rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. We see it over and over again. The lies that they tell people, the things the United States does. I mean, it's...
America, this is your country. This is why a reckoning must happen rather sooner than later.
Yeah.
Because we have to all confront the fact that our country has done atrociously awful, evil, very malevolent things
Yeah.
to the world.
The world.
And we will pay.
Oh, yeah.
We will pay.
Yep. All empires must eventually collapse, especially their evil empires. So the Cold War ended in 1991, but American regime change operations didn't stop. No, they just found new justifications. Instead of fighting communism, the United States would fight terrorism, spread democracy, and prevent weapons of mass destruction from falling into the wrong hands.
Lies.
And
Again,
more lies. And more
the
lies.
attacks of September 11th, 2001 created a new context for American military intervention. The Bush administration declared it a war on terror and asserted the right to overthrow any government that harbored terrorists or threatened American security.
Afghanistan was first. The Taliban regime had sheltered Al-Qaeda, and few questions the legitimacy of military actions there. But Iraq was different. Saddam Hussein had no connection to September 11th. He was a brutal dictator, yes, but he posed no imminent threat to the United States.
Just like Maduro.
Yep.
Nevertheless, in March 2003, the United States invaded Iraq. The stated reasons: weapons of mass destruction, ties to Al-Qaeda, the need to spread democracy. Would all prove to be false or exaggerated, but by then, it was too late.
It's like the same script over and over, even in the Bible. You know, the Yahweh God does the same thing. Go in there like that one vignette. Kill everybody that's, up the ages of such and such. It's like the same storyline over and over again.
So the next vignette is called Iraq 2003, Mission Accomplished.
Here we go.
Pacific Ocean, off the coast of California, May 1st, 2003. Ocean wind. A flight deck clanking under boots. Helicopter rotors thudding. The USS Abraham Lincoln has returned from deployment. Sailors line the deck in formation, dressed in bright colors, yellow, red, green, each one a moving part in the choreography of American power. Jets roar overhead. Sailors cheer. A Navy jet screams past the carrier, low and fast. Painted on its side, Navy 1. At the controls is the President of the United States. The jet lands hard. Tires screech. Applause swells. George W. Bush steps onto the deck in a green flight suit. On his chest, a name patch. Commander-in-Chief. Behind him, stretched across the carrier, a massive banner snaps in the sea wind. The banner reads, Mission Accomplished.
Thank you for your service. Today, we celebrate a victory for the cause of freedom and for the security of the American people.
6 weeks earlier, American forces invaded Iraq. Baghdad fell in less than a month. Saddam Hussein's government collapsed almost overnight. Statues were pulled down. Headlines declared success. But while the cameras stay on the carrier deck, Iraq is already beginning to unravel. The applause dissolves into Baghdad street noise, shouting, sirens, glass breaking.
There is no police, no army. Anyone can take anything.
Gunfire cracks in the distance. Crowds yell. Government buildings are looted. Hospitals are stripped bare. Weapons depots are left unguarded. Borders dissolve. Ministries burn. Fires crackle. Wood collapses.
They told us order would come. Where is it? Where's the order?
Footsteps crunch over debris. The Iraqi army, hundreds of thousands of men, is dissolved by decree. Overnight, armed, trained soldiers are sent home with no pay, no future, and plenty of weapons. Paper rustles. An official voice reads the order like it's routine.
Coalition Provisional Authority Order Number 2, the Iraqi army is hereby disbanded.
A hollow silence follows. Then low murmurs, anger settling in. In Washington, officials insist everything is under control. A press briefing room. Reporters murmuring.
Freedom is untidy. Stuff happens. People are free to make mistakes and commit crimes and do bad things.
Stuff happens. But in Iraq, what's happening is not freedom. It's a vacuum. No electricity, no clean water, no security. Militias form, sectarian lines harden. Foreign fighters begin to slip across borders, drawn by chaos and opportunity. Whispered prayers. A call to prayer echoing over distant gunfire. The occupation has no plan for what comes after overthrow. The government is gone, but nothing has replaced it. Back on the Abraham Lincoln, the speech is over. The president smiles for photographs. Camera shutters click. Polite applause fades. The war is declared over before it has truly begun. The applause dissolves into distant explosions. In the years that follow, more than 4,000 American service members will die. Hundreds of thousands of Iraqis will be killed. Torture prisons will be exposed. Civil war will rip the country apart. Helicopters overhead. Then silence. Out of the wreckage will rise Al-Qaeda in Iraq. And from that, ISIS. A deep, resonant low boom, like history underlining the sentence. The banner said, "Mission accomplished." Pause. But the mission, the real mission, was never defined, and the consequences are still unfolding.
Rinse, repeat, rinse,
This is your
repeat.
country.
Yeah, this is what they do when they go in. They don't fix anything. They claim to, but they never do. I mean,
we had this massive patriotic rush to just go serve our nation after 9/11. People were like being all patriotic, and
they do that, create a problem to then find the solution, and then they always bamboozle people and they lie to people.
Yeah.
Well, let me play another song. The song is called Time, another of my original. This is one that you could dance to, so if you feel like dancing, this is the time.
The sky is falling, it's coming right down. So many people are worried in town. Who do we blame for this rotten old game? Who do we blame this time? And this time, oh, this time. Take off your shoes, friend, stay for a while. Look deep inside your soul, you coward and clown. So what did you think? That your world wouldn't sink, that you wouldn't drown? And this time, oh, this time. Let's come together and change it around. The banking system, the political cloud, it must come to an end. We cannot pretend. This time, oh, this time. Children, their world is in shams. You're living real good now, but it won't stay the same when the buildings come down and the world won't be found. And this time,
reminds me of that movie that was produced by the Obamas, and what was it called? Something or another, all the meteors and stuff like that coming down. But no, that was out of the movie, the meteor movie.
Well, in 2011, a wave of pro-democracy uprisings swept across the Arab world. In Tunisia and Egypt, dictators fell. In Libya, protesters rose up against Muammar Gaddafi, who had ruled the country for 42 years.
Gaddafi was a friend of the United States for years.
Mm-hmm.
Gaddafi responded with brutal violence, threatening to hunt down protesters like rats and massacre them. The United States Security Council authorized military action to protect citizens. NATO, led by the United States, Britain, and France, began bombing Libyan governmental forces.
But the mission quickly expanded beyond protecting civilians. NATO force actively supported rebel groups fighting to overthrow Gaddafi. They bombed his compound, targeted his forces, and provided intelligence to the rebels. It was regime change in all but name.
The next vignette is Libya, 2011, Gaddafi's fall.
Sirte, Libya, October 20th, 2011. After 42 years in power, Muammar Gaddafi is fleeing his hometown. NATO has bombed his forces for months. Rebel fighters are closing in. His convoy races through the desert trying to escape. At 8:30 in the morning, NATO aircraft and drones strike the convoy. Vehicles erupt. Smoke fills the air. The convoy scatters. Gaddafi and a handful of loyalists abandon their vehicles and hide beneath a highway in a concrete drainage pipe.
There, in the pipes. Move. He's here. It's him. It's Gaddafi.
What are you doing? Don't you know right from wrong? What did I do to you?
You know exactly what you did. You ruled with fear. You tortured families. You crushed this country for decades.
Phones appear in every hand. The moment becomes a recording. The chaos becomes evidence. Gaddafi is killed by the crowd. The regime ends, not in a courtroom, but in violence. In Washington, officials react triumphantly. The Secretary of State will later joke about his death. But in Libya, the aftermath begins immediately. With no plan for what comes next, the country fractures. Rival militias battle for control. Weapons pour out of looted arsenals and spread across North Africa.
They said they were protecting us. They said they would bring democracy. Instead, they brought chaos. Gaddafi was a dictator, yes, but now we have many dictators. No government, no security, no future.
This is the pattern of regime change. The headline ends. The suffering does not.
There's an old saying in Spanish called La cura provoca la enfermedad. The cure is worse than the disease, and that's what the United States does. It goes in there promising all sorts of stuff and ruins everything. And that is what's going to strike us here in our own backyard, in our own country. Starting already. Libya fractures into rival governments and militia. Weapons from Gaddafi's arsenals flood across North Africa, fueling conflict from Mali to Nigeria. ISIS establishes a foothold in Libya's cities. Slave markets appear where human beings are bought and sold. The country becomes the primary transit point for desperate migrants trying to reach Europe, with thousands drowning in the Mediterranean.
Libyan civilians would say, they said they were protecting us. They said they would bring democracy. Instead, they brought chaos. Gaddafi was a dictator, yes, but now we have 100 dictators, all fighting each other. We have no government, no security, no future. Was this liberation? Or was this just another Western intervention that destroyed our country?
President Obama will later call the failure to plan for Libya's aftermath the worst mistake of his presidency. But it's the same mistake made in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Guatemala, in dozens of interventions, now Venezuela. American leaders topple regimes without any realistic plan for what comes next, then express surprise when chaos follows. And then came August 2021, perhaps the most dramatic and humiliating endpoint to any American regime change operation in history.
After 20 years of war, after spending over $2 trillion with a T, after training and equipping an Afghan army of 300,000 soldiers, after thousands of American and coalition deaths and hundreds of thousands of Afghan casualties, the Taliban returned to power in a matter of weeks. And we present our final vignette for tonight, Afghanistan 2021, Kabul Airport Chaos.
Kabul, Afghanistan, August 15th, 2021. The Taliban have been advancing for weeks. City after city has fallen without a fight. Despite 20 years of American training and billions in equipment, the Afghan army collapses almost overnight. At the presidential palace, Ashraf Ghani prepares to flee. He will later say he left to prevent bloodshed. Critics will call it cowardice. By afternoon, he is gone, and the Taliban enter Kabul without resistance.
Victory. Allah has given us victory. For 20 years, the Americans occupied our land. Now they run. Afghanistan is free.
At Hamid Karzai International Airport, chaos erupts. Thousands of Afghans rush the gates, desperate to escape before the Taliban consolidate control. They know what Taliban rule means, especially for women and for those who worked with Americans.
Please, let us through. I work for the Americans. I was an interpreter. They promised to protect us. Please, my children are here.
Back up. Get back. We can't process everyone. You need papers. You need visas. We don't have time.
Desperation spills onto the runway. Afghans cling to the wheels of departing aircraft. Some fall to their deaths. Others are crushed inside the landing gear. The images circle the world. August 26th. At Abbey Gate, an ISIS-K suicide bomber detonates explosives in a crowd. 13 American service members are killed, along with dozens of Afghan civilians.
13 dead. 13 Americans. After 20 years, it ends like this. We are leaving anyway.
August 30th. The final American aircraft lifts off. 20 years of occupation ends. The Taliban celebrate in the streets. The Islamic Emirate is restored exactly as it was before.
I risked my life for America. For 20 years, I helped your soldiers. Now I am hiding. The Taliban are searching for people like me. You abandoned us.
Yeah, America tends to do a lot of things, but you know what they're doing to their own people now it's crazy.
So, what have we learned from a century of regime change? Well, the patterns are clear. First, it's much easier to destroy a government than to build a better one. Second, military power cannot create sustainable political change. Third, interventions almost always produce unintended consequences worse than the original problem.
So fourth, short-term tactical victories regularly become long-term strategic disasters. And fifth, perhaps most importantly, the American people have short-term memories and American leaders have even shorter ones. Each generation of policymakers convinces itself that this time it will be different, that they've learned from past mistakes, that their intervention will finally break the pattern. No.
Well, author Stephen Kinzer identifies three main motivations that drove American regime changes. First was ideology, spreading democracy in the early years, fighting communism during the Cold War, and later combating terrorism. Second was power, the desire to extend American influence and prevent rival nations from gaining footholds in strategic regions, i.e. Greenland.
Yep, but the third motivation may be the most significant: economic interests. Time and time again, American corporations that face challenges from nationalist governments appeal to Washington for help. And time again, Washington responded with every form of diplomatic pressure, to CIA coup, to full-scale military invasions.
The question Kinzer's book forces us to confront is this: has any of this been worth it? Have a century of coups, revolutions, and invasions made America safer? Have they spread democracy and freedom, things that we thought we stood for?
Mhm.
Have they created a more stable and peaceful world?
By almost any measure, the answer is no, nada. Once America's closest ally in the Middle East, became its bitterest enemy. Cuba aligned with the Soviet Union and remained hostile for 6 decades. Guatemala, Chile, Nicaragua all descended into violence that killed hundreds of thousands. Afghanistan and Iraq became breeding grounds for terrorism.
And the costs weren't just abroad. These operations corrupted American democracy. Presidents learned that they could wage war without congressional approval, as we've seen. A president that literally said, I can go capture a head of a state without telling Congress and not enacting any kind of provisional, war orders or anything, votes or anything, because he thought that Congress would be leaking sensitive information and they couldn't afford to tell, the legislative branch, which is supposed to be checks and balances. Intelligence agencies learned that they could act without oversight. The gap between what American leaders said and what they actually did eroded public trust.
So, what are the lessons here? Well, first, respect national sovereignty. When people in other countries choose leaders or policies that American dislikes, that's their right. It doesn't justify military intervention or covert actions.
Second, understand that nationalism is a powerful force. American officials repeatedly underestimated how much people in other countries love their own nations. They assumed that material prosperity or American guidance would be enough to win hearts and minds. But people don't just want to be prosperous. They want to be free, to control their own destinies.
Third, recognize that military power cannot solve every problem. Sometimes the best foreign policy is patience, allowing other countries to work through their own challenges rather than imposing America's solutions by force. It's kind of like what the Christians have done throughout the world, force their religion on everyone else.
And fourth, plan for the aftermath. If you're going to depose a regime, you need to know exactly what comes next. And you need to be prepared to invest enormous resources in reconstruction for decades, not just months.
Fifth, be honest with the American people. Presidents have repeatedly cloaked intervention in noble rhetoric while acting for less noble reasons. The hypocrisy has eroded American credibility and moral authority both at home and abroad.
And finally, learn from history. The fact that most Americans are completely unaware of their country's long history of regime change operations is itself part of the problem. If citizens don't know what their government has done in their name with their tax dollars, they can't make informed decisions about what it should do in the future.
So where does that leave us in 2026? The temptation to overthrow foreign government hasn't disappeared. Right now, there are probably officials in Washington discussing which foreign leaders pose threats to American interests and what might be done about them.
What's different now is that America's capacity to shape events abroad, well, that has diminished. The world is more multipolar. Other powers, China, Russia, regional alliances, BRICS, can resist American pressure. The costs of intervention have risen dramatically, both financially and politically.
Perhaps most importantly, the internet and social media makes it much harder to keep intervention secret or to control the narrative. The age of plausible deniability is largely over.
All of this creates an opportunity for a different kind of foreign policy, one based on genuine partnership, what a concept, rather than domination, on persuasion rather than coercion, on respect for sovereignty rather than regime change.
What we hope this episode has done is provide you with the historical context you need to think critically about these issues. The next time you hear politicians call for intervention anywhere in the world, you'll have the knowledge to ask hard questions.
Because democracy requires an informed citizenry, and you can't be informed about American foreign policy without understanding this history. You can't even understand why Iran is hostile to the United States without knowing about the 1953 coup. You can't understand the chaos in Iraq without knowing about the decisions made and not made in 2003.
Stephen Kinser's book, Overthrow, America's Century of Regime Change from Hawaii to Iraq, is essential reading for anyone who wants to understand America's role in the world. It meticulously researched, compelling written, and brutally honest about both American power and American hubris.
Criticizing American foreign policy is not anti-American.
Nope.
It's not the same as hating America. In fact, it's one of the most patriotic things you can do. Democracy depends on citizens who are willing to hold their government accountable. That's what we all want, isn't it? Who demand honesty and wisdom, which is lacking in the White House right now by a man who throws up a middle finger and throws F-bombs out at random people.
Or calls reporters piggy.
Who insist that their country's actions match its ideals.
What America needs now is not more regime change operations, but more humility, more patience, more respect for the rights and dignity of people in other countries and in their own country. It needs leaders who understand that American security depends not on dominating the world, but on cooperating with it.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from the overthrow of Hawaii's monarchy, 1893, to the collapse of Afghanistan in 2021. We've explored the patterns, the consequences, and the lessons of America's century of regime change.
Thank you so much for listening to Transition Radio Show. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and share this with anyone who might benefit from understanding this history.
These stories, well, they need to be told. These lessons, they need to be learned no matter how hard it is.
Yeah, and I'm Mark.
I'm Lynna.
We love you, but remember to always love yourselves too.
Good night.
Good night. And as always, we're going to be ending with a song. Stay safe out there, guys.
Happened to this world? The sun just isn't shining. No, I don't mean that glowing light. I mean our hearts are not responding. Day and night, night and day, the years just keep on passing. Don't you see what's going on? Come on, put on your glasses. Wake up, people, wake up before it's too late. I can't believe what's going on. Our world is in such a clatter. How can we have allowed our fate? It feels like nothing matters. Day and night, night and day, the years just keep on passing. Don't tears from your eyes and think for just one moment.
It is up to us, my friends,
to save us from this torment.